And let's see what the correlation is and the connection is between money. The Bible has a lot to say about money. The word itself shows up about 140 times in a King James Bible. And the first thing we're going to look at is what actually is money. We all have some of it, as I said before, or what we think is money. But let's take a look at what actually constitutes money. These right here are the 6 attributes of money. Real money, durability is durable. Real money shouldn't fall apart in your pocket or evaporate when you aren't looking. It should be indestructible. This is why we don't use fruit for money. It can rot, be eaten by insects, and so on. It doesn't last. And this would include those little digits on your computer screen when you're looking at your bank balance, at the credit side of your bank balance, what you have in the bank. That can be disappeared with a few clicks of a computer mouse. There is nothing permanent or durable about it. It's divisible. Real money needs to be convertible into large and smaller pieces without losing its value. To fit a transaction of any size, that is why we don't use things like porcelain for money, like a Ming vase isn't worth much. I mean, it may be a valuable item, but you can't run down to the store and exchange it for goods and services. Money must be consistent. Real money is something that always looks the same, so that it's easy to recognize. Each piece identical to the next. This is why we don't use things like oil paintings for money. And again, you may own a Rembrandt or a Van Gogh, and the thing is maybe worth multiple millions of dollars. I don't know what those things are worth anymore to some people in the open market, but you can't take that down to the store and exchange it for stuff. I mean, it won't buy you anything unless you sell it and get money for it that you can spend. Each painting, even by the same artist of the same size and composed of the same materials, is unique. It's also why we don't use real estate as money. One piece is always different from another. So money has to be consistent. It's got to be convenient. Real money packs a lot of value into a small package and it's highly portable. This is why we don't use water for money. As essential as it is, just imagine how much you'd have to deliver to pay for a new house. Not to mention all the problems you'd have with the escrow. And, you know, this is silly. We all know this. We don't use other metals like lead or even copper. They would be too big and too hard to handle. And fifthly, and it has intrinsic value. Real money is something many people want or can use. This is critical to money functioning as a means of exchange. Even if I'm not a jeweler, I know that someone somewhere wants gold and will take it in exchange for something else of value to me. This is why we don't or shouldn't use things like scraps of paper for money, no matter how impressive the inscriptions upon them might be, because they have no intrinsic value in and of themselves. Real money has intrinsic value in and of itself, even when it's not being used as a medium of exchange. Intrinsic value, and lastly, it is scarce and can't be created on a whim. There is only one thing that qualifies under these strictures: precious metals, gold and silver. And as we've heard over and over and over, these two items gold and silver coin, have been considered money by every culture that's ever existed on earth for thousands of years. And let me tell you something. The Bible, God, the God of the Bible, considers them money. Because in every instance where money, the word money shows up in Scripture, whether it's in the Old Testament or the New Testament, the original language word behind it is silver coin. I think in a couple of instances it does say gold coin, but most of the time it is silver. It is a silver coin. That's why our coinage before 1964 all had silver in it. Most of it was what we call 90%. It's called junk silver now. It's anything but junk. Any coinage, dimes, quarters, silver dollars, half dollars that were coined before 1964 were 90% pure silver. So if you ever find any of those kind of coins, don't go down and exchange one of them for goods and services, because they're worth a lot more than their face value. Right now, about $25 an ounce. So a silver dime would actually be worth about $2.50. So keep that in mind. But those are the attributes of money. Question: does the money that we have now, which is mostly digits on a computer screen, qualify under any of this? Nope. It's not durable. It is divisible. I would say that. It's not consistent because it constantly changes value depending on how much they're creating, and they're creating immense amounts of it. In the last 2 years, they've created $4.5 trillion worth of it. And they're ready to put another $4.5 trillion out there now. Again, this year. 2 bills in Congress. So before the end of this year, we will have created, since the beginning of 2020, almost over $8 trillion in new money. You know what that does to the money that you already have? It devalues it. It's called devaluation. The only reason it hasn't shown up out here in the mainstream economy is because most of it has been going to the stock market to prop it up, to keep it going up, up, and up, to keep people pouring their money into it. But that's about to change, because a lot of this new money is getting ready to go into the mainstream economy, and it is going to create inflation. In fact, it already is. It's already begun. A lot of people have a misconception about what inflation is. Inflation is not a rise in prices. Inflation is what causes the rise in prices. Because when people get new money in their pockets, they have a tendency to go spend it, which bids prices up. And when prices go up, your money, the money that you have, doesn't go as far as it used to. That's what inflation is. In other words, your money is being quietly devalued. It's losing its purchasing power on a daily basis now. And as they continue to create these immense amounts of currency, and this is really not money, because none of it qualifies under those 6 strictures, especially its value, which is constantly vacillating. Nobody ever knows what it's really worth until they go out and try to spend it. So the best example I know of how this works is an auction. You had an auction that 100 people were at, and you went in there and gave each one of those 100 people $1,000 just handing them $1,000 in cash, then the goods, which didn't change, the goods they're going to bid on are going to be the same. The only thing that changed was the amount of money they had available to spend on them. The aggregate price of those goods would go up by $100,000 during that auction, over what it would have been had they never gotten that new money. That's how inflation works. It bid up the price of all of those goods because these people had all of that new money in their pocket. And so the insidious nature of it is when people get money they're not expecting, and they're fixing to stuff people's pockets with it, with this thing called universal basic income. You're just going to give money. They've already done some of it because of the COVID thing and the lockdowns. But this isn't going to stop. It's going to continue on. People are going to feel rich. That's what happens to you. It's human nature. Economics is not a mathematical science. It's a science. It's the study of how human beings react to money. That's it. And when you stuff people's pockets with money, very few of them are going to go put it in a savings account in the bank. Nope, they're going to go spend it, and it's going to bid prices up overall. We've got examples of this from the last century and this century. In the last century, we had the prime example was the Weimar Republic in Germany before Hitler took control. They had a hyperinflation, and this happened in a very short period of time. That hyperinflation of like 1,000,000%. That's hard for people now to believe. They don't believe that could ever happen. They believe, oh, they've got control of it. The Federal Reserve, they know what they're doing. No, they don't. In fact, I think it's totally out of control. So, that's what we're facing. And a lot of people believe, who have their money invested in the stock market, one way or another, that they believe the hype that they can just keep pushing it up, 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 up. It's just going to keep going up forever. History tells us differently. Every great empire that's debauched its currency, which includes the Roman Empire, that's why it fell. The British Empire, that's why it fell. The debasement of the currency. In Rome, they devalued their coinage. You know, there was no computers or anything. They didn't have. They used coins, but what they did was they debased the coins. They put worthless metal like tin instead of silver, instead of gold, and yet they made it look like the real thing. And of course, they were doing that because they had overextended themselves, just like our government has done. It's for all intents and purposes, it's bankrupt. None of the money, the 27 trillion or whatever it is that they owe now, is ever going to be paid back. It's going to be laid right at your feet. Make no mistake about that. You and I are the ones that owe that. They're borrowing it on our name. So just keep that in mind. So what's going to happen? Well, here's what I believe is going to happen. It's going to be like, when it happens, it's going to be sudden. It's going to be the crash of all crashes. It's going to be like the Hoover Dam breaking. The Hoover Dam dammed up the Colorado River and created the largest man-made reservoir in the country ever. Still is. That's something like 28 billion cubic feet of water in Lake Mead behind it. What would happen if that dam broke? And when a dam breaks, once the force of that volume of water starts going over it, it is going to go down fast, like in a matter of minutes. And it's going to empty the water in that lake onto the watershed below it, and millions of people are going to perish if that happens. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that is going to happen in the stock market. I mean, it's in the stratosphere. Consider the Dow Jones Industrial Average is, what is it, 35, 36,000 right now. When the dam breaks, when the bubble finally pops, that thing is going to drop overnight 8, 9-fold. You wake up one morning and there'll be headlines everywhere about the market losing 20,000 points. That's the way it's going to happen. And once that happens, all bets are off. It's Katie bar the door. It's going to cause a shutdown of the entire financial system because it's all tied to it. It's all planned. It's going to shut it down. You're going to go to an ATM to try and get money, and it's not going to be any in there. You're going to go to your bank, and the doors are going to be locked. Your online bill payment system is going to go to hell. Your payments are going to bounce. Yeah. So, let me issue you a warning. A lot of people believe, well, the rapture will happen before that. I don't know that, and neither do you. I mean, I hope it happens today. I'm ready. I had a man tell me all we need to do is prepare for the rapture. Well, I'm prepared. How do you prepare for the rapture? Trust Christ as your Savior if you've never done that, so that you guarantee you're going to be in it. But this thing may happen before the rapture. I mean, calamities like this have happened for the last couple of thousand years, and the rapture hadn't happened. The Lord is still tarried. So it would behoove you, after you've assured that you're going in the rapture, that you assure you're going to be somewhat covered when this calamity, this economic collapse happens. Well, how do I prepare for that? Get some of God's money in your possession. Gold and silver coins. That's God's money. That's what God says is money. You know how much gold and silver went into the tabernacle in the wilderness? Have you ever checked that out? I have. I want to show you. It tells you exactly how much is in there. I extrapolated the archaic measurements that they give in Exodus chapter 37, where this is listed, into modern measurements or modern weights, and it came out to almost $110 million in current valuation of gold and silver, which was prescribed by God through Moses in the design of that tabernacle. Why? Because these things symbolize the glory of God. These earthly elements are the elements that symbolize God's glory. That's why Paul used them in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 10 through 15 as a metaphor for good works. Gold, silver, and precious stones in that order. That's real money, particularly gold, silver. And when the collapse comes, I've had people ask, well, what good's that going to do? How am I going to spend that? It's not going to lose its value against the dollar. The dollar is going to plunge. And it'll look like gold and silver go skyrocket. But actually, they're just maintaining their value. They never lose it. What you paid for a suit 40 years ago with gold and silver, you can still pay for it today. It's the same amount of gold and silver will buy that same suit of clothes. And so what you're doing is you are just securing yourself. You're just covering yourself, because you can take that gold and silver coinage to a coin dealer, and I believe there will be some banks that'll do this too when this happens, and exchange it for currency that you can't spend. But when you make that exchange, you won't suffer loss. But once the collapse happens, the train will have already left the station, and there will no longer be any opportunity for this. So, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm just telling you what I've done, and I'm just telling you that first, get prepared for the rapture. Second, get prepared for the world we're going to exist in if it doesn't happen before the collapse happens. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope it's been edifying. I hope you'll join me again next week for another session. In the meantime, hope you have a great week, and the Lord richly bless you.